Right, I think we're
Hello.
here. Chris, are you there?
I think so.
You're
I'm
there.
hoping there's not too
Good.
much of a lag.
So, we're talking tonight. Okay. Hopefully not. Um, Octoghost. So, octopuses. Are there ghost octopuses, Chris?
Well, I guess some of them.
Some of them. So, you think that there are ghost octopuses, or octopi, I
Well,
should say, should
why
I?
not? Why not?
Well, some people would say that animals, like our good Christian friends, a lot of them say that animals don't have souls.
Well, they're idiots then, aren't they?
Okay. We're just going to draw a line under that one.
Well, it depends on really what you consider to be the soul. The problem
Yeah.
with the Abrahamic traditions is obviously they consider it God given. So why would God need to give souls to the animals? Because they are just beasts.
Hmm. I think it says somewhere in the Bible about um, only God is immortal. And then it also says somewhere in there about God giving man an immortal soul. So it's really difficult, really, because it's a bit contradictory, that book. They didn't really check it for errors, I don't think. I'd sack I
The
definitely sack
proofreader.
the PR department, and I would probably also sack the editor.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there we go. So, in terms of how we would define what a soul is, I normally think of a soul as the energetic components of something. So we got the physical components, but obviously there must be energetic components. And everything has energetic components. Therefore, I would say everything has a soul. So even rocks and like the whole building that I'm in has a soul because it must, if it's got physical components, have energetic components. And if the energetic components are what we're calling the soul, then everything has a soul. So, really,
Yeah.
the question is then about what happens after the physical remains disappear. So, when a person dies and rots or gets incinerated in the fiery crematorium, what happens to the energetic components? Similarly, if I destroy the building or I break up a rock, what happens to the energetic components of that? Now, like we discussed on the podcast that's coming out tomorrow, what was it called? No Holds Barred Witchcraft Podcast. The episode was Past Life Pokeballs, I think.
Past life Pokeballs.
So, like we kind of discussed, we went into a little bit about life after death and the like. But I know that the whole point of this show is to try and keep things super simple and so that everyone's on the same page. And that rather going and talking about slightly more in depth witchcraft and terminology and practices and the like, what I thought maybe might be easier for people and more palatable if we start off really simple and then maybe towards the end of the show for the maybe some of the witches that are listening we can go into slightly more in-depth complicated stuff that a lot of people might not really have a lot of experience with. So
Sounds good.
the ideas of spirits as in sentient spirit forms, like ghosts and the like. Because I know when we talk ghosts and that, a lot of people talk about like those stone tape theory ghosts. So it's just recordings that people pick up on. So we're in no way, shape, or form going to discuss that. Why? Because it's boring and no one cares. Who cares if a centurion or a group of them walk past your window every Friday night? I mean, who cares? It's boring. What people really want to discuss and talk about is the sentient ones. Can you make a friends with a ghost? Why would you want to do that? How do you make a ghost? Those sorts of things. And the things that you can learn from working with them. Because I'm seeing both in magical practice and to a certain extent in general occultism, a lack of people pushing the advancement of knowledge further. And the ones that are certainly aren't talking about it. And rather than blame it all on like the Illuminati or some shit, instead, I think that maybe if we talk about a more of a proactive approach of why that might be and how we as magical practitioners can look for the next step and the next interesting experiments to go down, I think that might be a little bit more kind of proactive. So
Okay, let's do that.
If we talk
Where do you want to
about a little
start?
bit about animal spirits and then a little bit about human spirits and the like, because I know a lot of people have various different abilities that might watch the show. So a lot of people, when they share the ghost stories and that, you can hear lots of people talk about a ghost talk to me and all this, that, and the other, and I've worked with them. And then you've got some psychics that see and sense and kind of communicate with them. So instead of talking about that, let's talk about some theories of how we might actually make a ghost.
Okay.
So we know, or we're going to probably accept, that your pet must obviously have a soul. So your black cat must obviously have a soul, because the soul is an energetic perspective, the energetic components. So what then stands to reason, and why is it that sometimes some spirits are still around and we can interact with them, and sometimes we can't? So the real part of the spirit that we're talking about having access to is the sentience, the consciousness. So where there's the consciousness of a person, the personality, the actual person, as if they were alive, but just in a spirit form, or the cat, that kind of thing. Now, a lot of people that have done experimenting and mucking around with this sort of thing know that, well, some of them stay around, but others don't. In terms of where they go if they don't stick around, that's probably for another edition or another episode.
That's
But
fine.
if
We
we're
can talk of
talking
heavens
about
and
the
hells
bits that
later.
the bits that stick around, have you got many experiences with working with these things, and why would you want to?
So, well, I think the first thing I'm going to say there is kind of like separating what you consider to be consciousness. So when it comes to the departed, because very few of the ghosts I've ever met have full sentience. So they might have a collection of memories. They'll have access to, what happened previously, but they're not connected to the fuller body. So they're not connected to the other energetic bodies that allow them to have access to better knowledge, shall we say, things outside the limitations of time.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
when we talk sentience, we mean can have a conversation back, has somewhat of their personality, but is more than just a recording. So I don't think we can kind of say full access is not often there, or at least unless you've summoned them, which is a different one. We should probably make the separation for that later. But actually, a ghost that's here by quote unquote accident, or on purpose, is going to be sticking around. And the argument is always for unfinished business, I think is the one they always call it. Often I think it's not a delay, almost like the lag that you get on Zoom calls. I sometimes feel like with a lot of these, that's what it is. There's kind of almost a lag before they go.
Okay.
I've or there is some kind of often trauma that has stifled the connection just as they were supposed to leave. And I don't mean necessarily died in a car crash kind of situation, although those sorts of ones are often the ones where the connection's gone shoddy during the traumatic end. Those that tends to be the ones, and they're the ones that even after the spirit has gone, that you've often got those reoccurrences. But I think that's partially down to, again, another buzzword that I'm going to hate having used is that kind of law of attraction moment where people are still thinking about that traumatic moment. Therefore, they're holding some of that energy back from actually going across, and, you know, being moved on. So, yeah, so I don't know which bits of that you want to pick out at first,
Okay.
but I'm sure you'll want to start.
So basically, you're talking about when I got the old-fashioned CD player, and I pull out the power cord, and it all goes dead, but the little red light's still on, and then it kind of stays on, and then it just kind of fades out.
Slowly fades out.
There's a lot of connotations to that, because obviously from the perspective of those that have done probably a lot of paranormal investigations and the like, or worked with spirits in minor ways, let's say, then, or human spirits, or things that have been around, whether it's humans or cats or dogs or whatever, don't really matter. Something that had a physical body and then don't have a physical body. What we do tend to find is that there aren't a lot of ones from back in the day. They're fairly recent, past couple of hundred years, not really thousands of years. So that kind of lag and delay, obviously, is, from my perspective, having worked with spirits and the like, on a slightly next level, for work within magic, as opposed to just interest and intrigue, getting them to do shit, in other words. They tend to appear from a psychic perspective as almost dissolving. So from the perspective of someone that works
with... a really good word for that.
Dissolving's the perspective that I would use. So what I tend to think of when I explain to some of the beginners and that is, I'd say, well, if you take a human or a cat or a dog or whatever, or an octopus, think of it as a machine, okay? So it has the physical components, like the microchips and the like in your computer, but then there's also the energetic components, which are like the software, okay? So we need to understand that machine, and at the moment we're just observing effects of the machine by interacting with it in different ways. So obviously the scientists and the biologists and the like and the physicists are all, and the chemists, all the scientists, blah blah blah, are all looking at the physical components of the machine, and they're learning a lot about the microchips and what they do to a certain extent. Those psychologists are trying to wrap their heads a little bit around, well, what might be software. And then the witches are trying to work, and the magical practitioners are trying to a certain extent work with all of it, but definitely working more with the coding and the software more than anything. The take home from this is that we're talking about machine. So we're talking about a physical body with energetic components. Now, if that machine's functioning, that computer's functioning, all of the microchips need to work and the software needs to work. If you remove some of the microchips, it has a strange, slightly abnormal, shall we say, effect. But it can still work, it just might not be able to do everything, okay? If we mess about with the software, then we normally throw the computer across the room and swear a lot. In other words, you know, if it's the energetic components that are going a little bit haywire, then that's most of the time due to energetic components a lot of the time. So that really what we're kind of talking about is we're talking about exploration from science and the biology and the like is exploring the physical parts. Exploring the energetic parts is magic, psychic work, that sort of thing. but two parts need to be a whole for that machine to work. What Chris, I think you're talking about is that lag of I've yanked out the power cord and I've smashed up the physical components. And now the software, the screen, it doesn't light up. It stayed on for a bit and then it kind of fizzled out. So in terms of experiments and the like, and deductions that you get from doing experiments and that energy that's there, that energetic components, clearly it needs the physical body in some way in order to stay here. Whether you think it's an anchor point or whether you think it's the power supply or what, doesn't really matter. But you know, obviously from the perspective of, in order to be in this physical realm, there's a physical component, and when you take that physical component away, things start to go somewhat wrong. From an incarnate perspective. So we'll ignore gods and that sort of thing, and jinn and that sort of thing. We'll just stick to things that were physical: cats, dogs, people, octopi, and then became just spirit, and why that kind of dissolves away. We're still on the same page? Chris?
We are. I just think I'm having some lag issues again.
Okay.
But I am here.
Okay. So then in terms of obviously the dissolving process, I tend to find that even the most mundane people, so non-magical people, that don't know really a lot about how the system works and haven't done a lot of experimentation with the system works and don't know the magic or the software elements, they tend to, even just by interacting with certain spirits, able to postpone that dissolving, maybe even reverse it a little bit. I kind of think of it as like one of those snow globes. Every time you work with or direct energy at by working, because where attention goes, energy flows, you're shaking the snow globe. And then all of a sudden the spirit's kind of there and it's able to do more and more and more, maybe become a little bit more sentient and the like. But obviously that would depend on how dissolved it is. So in terms of what the takeaway from that is you could be thinking the more you work with spirit, you're essentially shaking that snow globe and supplying it with a certain amount of power / training, stopping that dissolving process. Because I find that when I go into somewhere where there is a sentient spirit and it's the spirit of a human, and I start interacting with it more and more, it becomes a little bit more intelligent. It remembers more, is able to do more, is able to physically interact with the room, for example, and move things and that, because obviously the energy that's being given to it is stopping it from dissolving. But I also tend to find that as soon as you let go of that, or as soon as you walk away, it will start to dissipate again until eventually it crosses over, #crosses over. So the same must be true for animals and the like as well. But I don't tend to find a lot of people that interact a huge amount with animals. I don't see a huge amount of paranormal investigation, for example, going specifically to work with animals. They seem to only want to focus on the people.
Yeah. Even though I'd have thought that someone like, Champion the Wonder Horse would be really good at counting out and knocking, when you're asking, is there somebody there? Can you tell me that if you're here, can you knock the, 3 times for yes? Champion the Wonder Horse would definitely be good at that. Because obviously he can count, whereas most animals can't. So, we'll see. I suppose most people have kind of they kind of mix up kind of spirit guides, I think is kind of the next place I want to go, is mixing up spirit guides with ghosts and all that kind of stuff as all part of one big mix. When actually it's not quite that simple. Yeah.
Okay, I can't really hear anything you've said. because for some
I'm sorry,
reason
I
it keeps
don't,
going
it
funny.
looks
I'm
perfect from this side
presuming.
and I can't tell.
I don't know.
And I don't know what else to do about it.
On that screen, I can see nothing, and then on that screen, I can see him moving, but I can't hear him. So I just heard about exploring different types of spirits. So I think you said spirit guides. So I suppose it's categorizing and what categories they fall under. Because I normally make the category of, okay, things that have had a life, so a living corporeal body, and then things that haven't.
Yeah.
So if it's had a life, it's easy to categorize that. That's a fish, that's a person, that's a cat, that's a dog, that's octopi, or a bird, or something like that. Whereas obviously the categories for things that have never really had a life, perhaps, might be a little bit more complicated, because then you hear things like angel, or a fae, or a jinn, or a spirit guide, or a this or a that. And it's kind of like, well, a lot of those come from different cultures, don't they? And although you can buy an encyclopedia of spirits, I don't find that gives a huge amount of information.
Yeah.
So,
and when you have when you're having those sorts of interactions, you're having those with the entirety of the spirit. So not what we were talking about before, which is ghosts where you've got one part of the complete jigsaw. We're actually with the spirit guides, and even if that happens to be, Uncle Jim, great Uncle Jim or something, then that's not a ghost. That is a fully functioning. Oh, now is Liam gone? So with the fully functioning, completely sentient. So at that point, what you're actually doing is closer to invocation, which is actually speaking to the entirety of that entity, from a psychic level. So with that
might be better.
Okay. I don't know what you just did, but
I just moved.
You do that.
Okay. I can hear better on this, so I don't really know.
Okay.
We'll just do what we normally do. We'll blame on the spirits, okay?
That's fine. I'm all for blaming them. So what I was trying to say was I was trying to separate what you are used to thinking of as a ghost, a human spirit, or an animal spirit of any kind of, like Liam says, that has lived, separating that from what people see when they are communing with spirit, because that's different. That's not necessarily grandma sticking around because she's got to tell you where the family jewels are. That's normally a type of invocation. So that's where you're actually pulling spirit from where they are, a part of their energetic bodies, part of their other parts of the soul, that existence may already be in its next life. So when you're pulling through at that point, what you're doing is pulling at an astral body, or one of the many spiritual bodies that you're then communing with, which is why you have full access there. That's why grandma can tell you about the future in that point, because she's capable of seeing time from a fourth dimensional point of view, from a non-linear point of view. A ghost cannot do that because it does not have access to its further bodies. That was the whether or not that made any sense. Liam will surely tell me, because he can actually hear me now, whether or not that was actually made any kind of sense, because I know I tend to go off on one.
So from the basic perspective, if we re-elaborate invocation versus evocation and the summoning of spirits. Invocation inside. So you're pulling possession work, that kind of thing. You're pulling the spirit into yourself or putting it into, I don't know, an animal or a host or something like that. What we're talking about is evocation. So that's pulling the spirit to appear in front of you. So obviously you talked about summoning and evoking spirits. So the evocation is an art form in itself. You can read lots of magical textbooks and the like, and they all have like long in-depth formulas for how to do evocation. Draw a bunch of shit in chalk on the floor, say the magic words, call the spirit at the right time, and it'll appear. So let's ignore the complexities of that, because people overcomplicate the subject, and let's think about it as this. So clearly there's a disconnect in the machine. The machine, that means that you've got a physical component and energetic components, the soul. When you get rid of the physical component, the machine's kind of broken and the bad stuff's happening. The machine can't fully do what it wants to do. Now, the secret art to evocation is understanding what you're summoning and what it requires. So evocation is quite simple when you understand the process of it. Generally, most people don't understand the process because they get pulled into the mysterious and the mystique of all these weird words and rituals and tools and incenses and funny shapes that you write on the floor, such as Solomon triangle or something like that. Think of it like this. Environment. I have a body and my energetic components are perfectly housed within this body. When you're pulling something to appear in front of you, it needs to be able to survive in the environment you're pulling it into. Okay, so false manifestations and incorrect evocation means that when you pull a spirit in, it won't manifest or won't manifest properly. If you have a fish tank and you get the fish and pull it out of the water, it flaps about and then dies because it's not designed and cannot survive in the environment that we're in. The physical plane is a struggle for a lot of a spirits, different types of spirits, to survive on and stay in. So when you're doing your evocation, what you're doing is creating #sacred space, a perfect environment that has all of the things necessary for what you're calling in to be able to maintain a connection there, to be able to survive essentially. So when it comes to psychic work, a lot of psychics and that will interact with spirits and the like on a different plane. However, when we're talking about full-on evocations where you can see it stood in front of you and interact with it, obviously there's components that are missing because the spirit's unable to do that. So the evocation ritual and system needs to be a formula for completing the missing components that the spirit lacks. So in other words, giving it a fucking spacesuit if it's going into space. So if it's coming into the material plane, you need to create an environment. So stereotypically, that would be when you talk about like circles and the like, creating a circle, creating the manifestation of the appropriate energy that that spirit needs to manifest within that sacred space, within that circle, so that it can actually manifest. Evocation is super simple. You just need to know what you're calling so that you know what it needs in order to come here, assuming it does. So you're either forcing it to come and giving it what it needs, or you're asking it to come. Some spirits that are powerful can do that for themselves. Spirits that are weak, such as human spirits very often, or animal spirits and the like, don't have that ability because they ain't magical. So how are they going to know stuff like that? Witchcraft and magic is essentially about finding out how the big machine works so that we can interact with it. So I just wanted to go over like invocation versus evocation, because I know some people might find it a little bit confusing. But in terms of obviously the fact that clearly, if the spirit's dissolving and disappearing slowly or quickly, crossing over, then the fact that it's dissolving means that it's becoming weaker and weaker and weaker and able to do less and less and less. So it might start off with like a lava lamp heat, which maintains it, but then when it loses that energy and ability, it starts to fall down and then just, crosses over essentially. So, might go over the heads of some people, but let's talk about why you would actually want to do that. Because we get the idea of, okay, you want to find out where the will is. Grandma's died, she hid it. Conjure her up and ask her. You could ask a psychic to locate the will magically, but you might as well just go and ask grandma. So that's the kind of mundane approach to obviously doing that. But in terms of why you might want to prevent a spirit from dissolving, that's quite an interesting concept and something that you don't see a huge amount of. We could go into that, but I suppose we should answer the question. We've just got a question. What do you think of seeing animals at your peripheral vision? At Christopher Evans.
I love how you passed that one on. Well, I know what you mean. I know what you're referring to. Obviously, a lot more animals die than humans is the simple answer to that. Moving by, that's often nothing to do with real. We're going back to the spirit versus spirit animal thing, in or spirit guide thing. So that access is your conscious and your subconscious mind combining in order to tell you something. So in those moments, it might be that you have a spirit guide that is animal shaped, but that's not coming from the living world currently. So it's not coming from that bunny just died and then ran past you. This is where you're having guides that are helping you and are therefore taking on various different shapes in order to tell you what you need to hear at that point. So this isn't, although there are lots more spirit animals out there, and I'm going back to, okay, one I'll call ghost animals because then it makes more sense. Ghost animals you'll see all the time because they're constantly passing over. You might just catch a glimpse of them because poor bunny just died down the road, just got hit by a car, or fox got it, one or the other. There will be those kind of lapses as things cross over. The peripheral vision one that you're more likely to see, those tend to be where your body, either your subconscious mind or your highest, again, I went to say it again then, a greater selves trying to tell you something, or like I said, a spirit guide. So if you've got a spirit guide animal, it may be that all the animals, spirit guide animals that you've seen in every dream, on every astral journey you've ever taken, are the same group, that they change shape constantly in order to fit your understanding. You have to remember that most spirit guides are of energetic bodies that don't need, so going back to what Liam was saying before, don't need a physical body, don't have a physical body, are reaching at you from a different level of consciousness. So that starts to get too complicated for where we were trying to go. But essentially, when it comes to seeing animals in your peripheral vision, normally that's something to do with you, less than seeing a ghosty animal. I'm going to go with that one. Ghosty animals, spirit animals, separate, different.
Okay. So if I expand on something, because you've covered the types of spirits and stuff, so if I cover the peripheral vision part,
So in terms of, this might be a little bit complicated for some that's not used to us talking about how we'd normally teach, but in general, there's quite a lot of content that we've put out in terms of psychic work and how psychics do the things they do, and obviously helping those people that have that ability or don't have that ability expand. So if you don't have the ability, getting that ability, and if you do have that ability, expanding it more. So psychic work obviously comes from the unconscious, because it goes physical body, conscious mind, that we're in control of, unconscious mind. All of the psychic messages and the like come through that unconscious doorway. The senses, as in your physical senses, you know, smell, hearing, sight, all that sort of stuff. Your physical conscious mind focuses very intently on certain things. When you're talking about eyes, because we're talking peripheral vision within the question, your conscious mind will pay attention to what's directly in front of you. The unconscious mind, however, takes in more. Think of it as a domain and who owns what. The conscious mind always owns, generally, the center. The way in which the unconscious mind can pick up on things and translate it to the conscious mind is to use its zone that it acts in, it has control over, which is around here. If you're going out, peripheral vision, out here. The closer to the middle, you'll find the more your mind you notice and are in control of. It dominates. Meditation and psychic training and the like is designed to stop your conscious mind from commanding and taking over all of your senses, to allow the unconscious mind to start putting things in front of you, whether they be images or hearing things or smelling things, all that sort of thing. Psychic training. Psychic training is basically about quieting the conscious mind, but not switching it off, because we need the conscious mind in order to actually decide what we're doing and have purpose for it. If we're going and taking a trip and taking loads of drugs, we're just getting rid of our conscious mind and sticking the unconscious in. When we dream at night, it's just unconscious, no structure. Witches, magic, psychics, the point is the conscious mind being in control. So the two work together. If I want some information, the conscious mind is going to be la 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 la, whatever. I think I'm going to go to France today. What you need to do is you need to, much like with a child, slap it. No, I'm joking. Don't slap your children. You need to have enough control over the child / unconscious mind to tell it what to do, so they can then go away and do that. So with peripheral vision, if the unconscious mind is trying to bring things towards you or highlight something, it can't use the bits that the conscious mind are currently controlling. So it uses bits that aren't really under its control. So if you see something out the corner of your eye and the like, your conscious mind, if you were to want to look in that direction, you are going to turn and look in that direction, because your conscious mind will physically make you do that. You will make yourself do that. The unconscious doesn't. Okay. So as soon as you see something that's materializing in the corner, what you're really doing is your conscious mind is taking over and you no longer can see it. Now, it's impractical to keep that as a technique, but it is the preset technique that most people have, is that they try to sense things in their peripheral vision because they know their unconscious mind has more control over that and can show them stuff in that. What you really need to do with, in terms of psychic work, is to start reducing the strength your conscious mind has over your senses. So in other words, not focusing necessarily. It's a difficult one, but it takes some time to master, so that when your conscious mind does pick on something, you can go about your everyday business, but then when the conscious mind and something materializes, you can quiet down and then just slowly turn, and the thing will still be there because you'll still be able to see it. Okay, I know that this is a little bit complicated, and we will be doing more and more episodes dedicated to psychic work and psychic development, because I know that's something that everyone's interested in. But hopefully that'll answer a couple of questions in regards to peripheral vision. And Chris, I forgot what other thing we were talking about. I know we're talking spirit animals and the like. I think I said something along the lines of, what's the point of keeping spirits going, or something like that? Stopping them
what's
from
the point
over?
of keeping a spirit held in this space for longer than it needs to be?
So ignoring other spirits, but keeping one from crossing over, essentially. So stopping an animal spirit or a plant spirit. Plant spirit? What's that? Or whatever else it is, human spirit, from crossing over. So ignoring the angels and all of the other stuff that don't have physical bodies, and just concentrating on something that's lost its physical body, that's going to end up getting blown away to some other dimension or dissolving, keeping it here. Why would you want to do that? So why would you want to do it, Chris?
Well, I generally don't. You know me. I'm not big on the necromancy. But yeah, holding someone from moving on is often quite a selfish thing. It's normally done because someone can't let go, and is often done not on purpose. So it's normally done, and until they kind of realise quite how selfish that is, I don't think people actually come to grips with the letting go part. Because at the end of the day, the spirit's done its job. I think part of it is down to a misunderstanding of what we've been talking about, which is you can still access grandma, whatever body she's now in, because that's the greater self, the bigger components of the spiritual bodies.
After she's crossed over.
After she's crossed over, would allow you to still have that communication through, like I said, a medium. In their methods, which are of a variety of evocation. I do understand that I said that wrong earlier, but I'm tired. So yeah, that is essentially a variation of that. The difference is, rather than using magical apparatus, a psychic does that purely with psychic ability. So at that point, it is forcing your other bodies to grab somebody else's other body to bring them here, and that's what's happening with the psychic work. How well that works is down to how well the and how practiced the psychic or medium or witch that is doing that. The difference with evocation is pulling them from there into this physical space, or a physical space and an energetic space and holding space. That's different. The reason that's particularly different is because you're getting more, rather than the stream of consciousness that you're used to hearing when you speak to a medium or a psychic or someone that has that gift, that allows them to essentially connect themselves, often through an intermediary. A lot of mediums aren't just the only intermediary that's working there. They've normally got some kind of outsourcing that helps to get that done. But obviously, whether or not that's angels or anyone else on that particular list, but that becomes the kind of bridge that allows it to be powered from both sides. So rather than you just having a walkie-talkie and nobody else is on the other end, this allows the two to actually connect themselves, and allows you to actually have that communication. And like I said, the reason you get that stream of consciousness is because it's not a very solid connection. Whereas when you use evocation, you're bringing the entirety of that particular spiritual body, not its entirety, an entire energetic body into this space to allow you to actually converse with it. That then becomes a two-way conversation rather than a stream of consciousness, which is what you'll normally access, where you'll get some answers, but normally it's the negotiation between the medium and the client that is allowing to kind of pick out that information that's coming. Whereas actually with an evocation, you could kind of sit there and go, Granny, where did you put it? Where's the will? Where did you put it? And she'd be able to tell you exactly why and where and why. She's not going to give it to you. But that's entirely a two-way conversation that's then available because that's full evocation rather than a bridge crossing.
Okay. So we've gone a little bit further down the rabbit holes of invocation and evocation. And there's a couple of points that I'd probably go over as well from my perspective of ways and approaches that they do that. But before that, obviously, the question was, why would you want to stop a spirit from passing on? And obviously, you highlighted that often it can be done accidentally for selfish reasons because you don't want to lose someone. So that's one of them, and that's probably one of the ones which are most often, let's be fair, people end up pulling on the connection, like the little child that don't want mummy to leave, so they're yanking on mummy's trouser legs, then don't leave me, and it might be enough to keep the spirit here a little bit longer, you know. Other things that maybe the spirit itself doesn't want to leave, but of course without that spirit, you know, that spirit is unlikely, unless it understands the system, it's not going to be able to keep itself here indefinitely. So you have the idea of spirits that are particularly strong-willed being able to stay around for a little bit longer. Yes, a little bit longer, but not indefinitely. Obviously, it is possible for a spirit to stick around indefinitely, but that spirit would either need to understand what component parts are missing that ends up meaning that they dissolve, and obviously correcting that, or they need someone or something to stop them from moving on. So to power that, essentially, which is quite difficult if you're dead, unless you know the system. So in terms of why other people might want a spirit to stick around, then of course you have the idea of the old worker bee. So in terms of torture, you're probably not going to force a spirit to stop moving on to torture them. What you're more likely going to do if you really wanted to torture a spirit is you don't want it to move on. You don't want it to stay. You want it to move on. You just want it to move on somewhere nasty. So that's the concept and idea of sticking it in a hell or something. Or more advanced, creating a hell that is a past the veil and then making sure that they cross the veil into that hell and get stuck there. Essentially, slightly more advanced magic, but you know, the concepts of why you might want a spirit to stay. So obviously spirits in general don't have bodies, so it can be useful to make friends with things that don't have bodies. The real problem with working with spirits of dead people and animals is the fact that they need a huge amount of training. Like, they can't even keep themselves here, let alone do useful things most of the time. So if you are going to start working with a spirit because you want it to work for you and be useful to you, you not only have to teach that spirit or keep it here by empowering it, or teach it how to empower itself, but you also need to teach it all of this magical stuff. The ability of being able to go over to Australia and spy on that person you want spying on, or to be able to shift itself a little bit further from the physical so that it can see both where it came from, the physical and the past and the future. It has to be A, smart enough to do that, B, have the power to do that, and then C, actually be able to then come back and tell you because it will want to, or you've got to force it to do that. So in terms of the second reason why you might work with a spirit, first one being obviously you want grandma to stick around because you miss her. Second reason would be as a butler slash, what would I say, personal assistant, I suppose.
Yeah.
It could be
At the end of the day,
useful.
a better way to work with that would be to create a spirit itself.
Yeah, so you don't tend to see a lot of witches working with spirits of the dead in that capacity because a witch would need to put a lot of effort into training a dead person to do that because dead people aren't particularly preset to doing that. It requires some work compared to just making a spirit designed specifically for that, such as an egregore, or getting a more powerful spirit that you don't even need to teach half of that stuff to, which is why witches and magical practitioners tend to work with higher level spirits a lot, because they don't need to teach them anything. They just need to find one that is aligned with their goals and make friends with it, or pay it, which is the idea of offerings and the like. And then we've got, how does that work when paranormal investigating? Could you, because obviously we talked about quite a lot, so could you give us a little bit more specifics about what specifically you're interested in regards to a technique or something we've discussed in terms of paranormal investigation? Because I'm not entirely sure exactly what part you were commenting on.
I imagine it came about the time when we were talking about keeping a spirit here. A usefulness of keeping a spirit here. But I'm sure whoever's on the keyboard would tell us in a sec. But I think that's what we were at.
So yeah, just elaborate a little bit so we're all on the same page. But in terms of paranormal investigation, remember we have 3 different types of paranormal investigation from our perspective. So me and Chris's perspective, we would have 3 types of paranormal investigator. Paranormal investigator number 1 is a money-making tour thing. They don't really care so much about that.
Just want to meet as many famous people as possible.
Ghost hunting kind of crowd is normally a case of giving people a spooky experience in exchange for some money. So it's kind of like, I don't know, Alton Towers. So we've got tourism, I suppose, paranormal investigation. The second one, we have paranormal investigation in the form of trying to investigate how the universe works, but the energetic components, because obviously we are used to dealing with robots and biology and the like, but there are mysteries out there that are a bit more complicated. Magic, spirits, all the stuff that's on the fringes of what science doesn't understand. Some science almost understands, but really what you're mainly talking about is the stuff science hasn't even begun to understand, but we're going to try and investigate that and try and push in that. And obviously in terms of trying to bring that to the forefront of science as well. So we're not just investigating these things, but we're actually trying to improve science by doing that. So, i.e., proving life after death, which is obviously completely opposed to witchcraft normally, but there we go. And then obviously the third type of paranormal investigator is the type that is paid to go and investigate something that's weird because someone isn't happy with something. So if someone has a problem, that type of paranormal investigator would be told or asked or paid to go there and investigate the source of the problem, potentially fix it. Not necessarily. They might just be told to go there and report on it and get it all written down as to what's happening. It will vary. Some people will go there with some experience as to trying to fix problems. Some people will go there just to diagnose or record problems. So, 3 types of paranormal investigator that we tend to see. So in terms of answering your questions, we'll try and link it to those three types instead of just saying paranormal investigation in general. So, if spirits disappear, how does it work ghost hunting? So, the idea of paranormal investigation with regards to ghost hunting in the first section, in regards to tourism, that relies on giving people spooky experiences, so letting members of the public pay to have an experience with ghosts, because ghosts are mysterious. Okay, if ghosts aren't mysterious, like they never used to be back in the day, that tourist industry dries up because everyone can do it. So basically, it's an attraction. In regards to working with ghosts for tourism, if me and Chris were to start up a ghost walk, we wouldn't necessarily decide to go out and find somewhere that is haunted. We would use our magical ability and understanding the perspective of, well, we know how to stop ghosts from crossing over. So how's about we buy that house and prevent ghosts from crossing over, therefore it will be haunted, therefore we can create a tourist kind of attraction and the like. Regards to the second one, in regards to the paranormal investigators that are trying to push the forefront of scientific knowledge, it doesn't work with that because they're unable to do that because it's not part of science. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to discover how that process works and what ghosts are still. They're still trying to work out how the soul works, essentially. They haven't got to the stage, normally speaking, where it's official, this is how the soul works, this is what a ghost is, and this is how you prevent the crossing over point. What they're doing is they're investigating that. So they're trying to work out how that works. In regards to the last one, number 3, which is investigating to fix problems, that's starting to border on magical practice and witchcraft. So if you're a magical practitioner, if you're a paranormal investigator that investigates things and then writes reports, all you're really doing normally is confirming that something weird's happening. So if at 3 o'clock in the morning, everything on every shelf in every part of the building flies across the room, really what you're doing is you're going there to confirm that's actually happening. Some will go further and say, okay, this is a problem. I've identified the problem and I agree that there is a problem. I will then help to fix that. So with that, you're talking about magical practice. So the concept of stopping spirits from crossing over or helping spirits cross over and the like, that's regards to offering a service. So if you find
I'm smiling
a
because that was a lovely description. I don't think it actually answered the question they were asking.
Right. What was the question?
So those that explained how actually the purposes of why you would do those things, but I think it was more of a how question in the sense of how does the kind of the ghost hunting work if they are all constantly disappearing. So I think it kind of reiterates what we were talking about before, is that it's in a state of dissolve, a kind of nuclear decay, if we will, from the second that the physical body is gone. So once that is finally all dissolved away and all it is bone, moving on from that point, whatever is there is going back to what we were talking about originally, which is where, depending on what kind of spirit you've got, if you've got an entire spirit that's being held here, and with ghost hunting is one of the ways that you can constantly feed and stop that dissolve. So if you get a particular spirit that, you know, stories have been told about going back to example number 1 with what you were saying, Liam, about the tourism part, if you've got enough people on the circuit of these investigators on the circuit of going to the same spots, they are slowing down that that dissolving because of that constant interaction. Whereas the other
Potentially,
two,
yeah.
the other two, you've got the potential of, if you're able to feed it, if you're just going there like Japanese tourists and just going snap, 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 then obviously that's not going to be enough to feed an entity long enough for it to stay here. But actually working with it. So if you actually, went there with a full setup, kind of with the third
Feeding
option. The third option that Liam was talking about, where you've gone there as a professional group that are going there to document and all that kind of stuff. In that third one, where you're trying to communicate with it and document and find out that actual interaction with it, because I think the second group don't always do the interacting. I think they are, but what they're actually doing is more closer to the tourism. Is the snap, 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 snap.
Mm-hmm.
Can we catch as much information as possible because we're scientists? Whereas that third group is more of a, we've heard enough stories to say we think there's something here. Now can we kind of interact with it? And that's where it starts to border, like Liam says, onto the practitioner side of what can we get this to do. So I think somewhere between Liam's description and that, hopefully you get the answer that you wanted.
So on the subject, to finish off, because I think we've pretty much at the end of the show now, identifying the 3 different types of paranormal investigator. Number 1, the tourism. Do they have someone that is able to use their knowledge of magic to help with their business of tourism? So it doesn't matter what that is. You're essentially talking about, okay, we can't afford the famous house that the serial killer killed all those people in, and there's energies there. So instead we'll buy the cheapo house that was built in the 1990s, and we'll just make it haunted. So practical applications, i.e. you're using magic to help with a business, like a consultant. Number 2, the people that are trying to prove to the world that spirits exist. You won't find a single witch, from my perspective, that I've ever met that will ever help with that. No witch past the basic level will ever help you prove to the rest of the world that spirits exist and the like, because we don't want people thinking that, for one. And it does not suit a witch's purpose for everyone to be thinking that. Everyone used to, and it didn't work out very well for us. So we would much prefer, from our perspective, being Chris's perspective at least, and the people that we work with, to flirt around the idea enough that it attracts people that are wanting to go down a serious path, but at no point would I ever teach someone that wants to add that to the scientific repertoire, because I do a lot of future readings and past readings and the like, and it don't work out well for the witches. So my suggestion is that if you're seeking to prove to the world that spirits exist by messing about with them magically, possibly not a very good idea to tell a mentor that you're trying to do that, because you won't find many mentors. If you did, then we'd already have that as scientific kind of, it would already be a little bit well known. The ideas of the mystery schools and secret societies and the like, they keep their knowledge a secret for a reason. It's not just for shits and giggles. People that do that sort of work don't want people doing it, and the people that they're okay with doing it is generally because they're not giving that knowledge to people that are going to cause trouble, shall we say, which, when the knowledge is out there for everyone to use, the amount of troublemakers tend to go up. And when I say troublemakers, I don't mean naughty witches. I mean people that do stupid ass shit that ends up fucking the rest of us up. In regards to the last people, the paranormal investigators, number 3, which would be investigating things and then potentially fixing things, That is where you'll find the most amount of knowledge, and that's probably where you'll find the most amount of people with that knowledge, because that's service industry essentially, and at the same time is not education. So there are a lot of paranormal investigators out there that are perfectly capable of preventing a spirit from moving on for whatever reason they want to. I don't know, but they're capable of preventing it, and they're also capable of forcing a spirit to move on. So in terms of where you rank your paranormal investigators and where you tend to find people to gravitate towards, if you pay a witch enough money, they might help you with your business. If you're trying to get a witch to help you prove to the world that magic exists and the like, good luck with that. And if you're wanting to further your ability to be able to fix paranormal problems, then really, at some point, from my perspective anyway, those people stop calling themselves paranormal investigators, and start really referring to themselves as witches, magicians, magical practitioners, given that they're doing actual magic. Other than for, you know, publicity wise, obviously using the term paranormal investigator, if you have a business where you investigate paranormal things and fix them, makes perfect sense. Okay, so what would the equivalent be? A psychiatrist treats, a psychologist might carry out research, but they both deal in psychology. Paranormal investigator of the third variety uses their knowledge to investigate, perfect their knowledge, but also uses that practically to fix problems. Magical practitioner, magician, a lot of witches, they're only interested in furthering their magical knowledge and the like, and a lot of them don't necessarily do that extra bit. So they're more like the psychologist and just interested in research. And learning more. They're not really interested in setting up a business that fixes things. So when you find professional witches, like you could call us paranormal investigators of the third variety, because we all investigate things and fix them. But our emphasis is normally on the fixing part. We have no interest in the investigating. So we have no interest in the tourism. We have no interest in the proving to the rest of the world they exist and getting papers written on it and shit. We only are interested in fixing problems because we like puzzles. Ultimately, Chris, is that fair to say? He's just going, yeah, I'll just agree because I forgot what you're saying because he said a load of bollocks again. But there we go. So yeah, so obviously we'll be here next week at 8 o'clock again. I'm not entirely sure what we'll be talking about next week, although someone
But no doubt Liam will go off the topic.
Well, Chris, someone requested that we do an episode on Aleister Crowley, so maybe maybe we'll do one on Aleister Crowley, because we did a podcast on Aleister Crowley on the No Hosbard Witchcraft podcast, and that one wasn't very flattering for Aleister Crowley, but we looked at it from a magical practitioner's perspective, whereas maybe we should look at it as more of a I don't know, a little bit about his life and lessons to be learned from the man's life, because a lot of people won't necessarily know who he is. So maybe a little introduction to him.
Bit of history, bit of why he's so
and his approach,
infamous.
And
then move on from there. Maybe put us through a bit more magic in the second half.
We'll do that.
Sounds
so
good.
Next week we'll do an episode on Aleister Crowley. We'll call it the Beast 666. How's that?
Yeah, why not?
And I'll write a little description, and then obviously you can ask us questions in regards to anything magical related. But we'll have the main theme being Aleister Crowley then. There we go. So there we go. Good night, everyone. And sorry for the technical difficulties.
If you're tired of all the neo-pagan claptrap that's on the internet and want to see some real witchcraft, please subscribe to the Thoth TV YouTube channel. If you really want to kick things up a notch, try clicking the No Hosbard podcast link.